business then.
I'm passing out with some details to it. Campus reorganization plan. It's short and sweet. This resolution, it says is, but will be written to support the proposed campus reorganization put forth by the Dwight Morrow and Academy's principal, Peter Elbert, assistant principal, Joe Armental. This campus reorganization is to be presented in resolution form and acted on at the April 3rd, hopefully 2014 board meeting. It will be written by our board secretary, the resolution. This reorganization will assist in improving the climate, culture, and student achievement on the entire campus, and will also bring us in line with what the academies were supposed to be put on the campus for, which is diversity for all students, and making sure that everyone has an equal share. And also included in there will be STEM. There is a lot of money and grants for STEM. If you look around the country, and if you look at the other school here in Inglewood, they are getting a lot of money for STEM, and hopefully we could get a good grant writer so that we can get that. If I'm correct, the other school in Inglewood is building a building and having a lot of that done by money from STEM. So hopefully in the next few years we will be able to get some funds and maybe get a STEM building or something for ourselves. Thank you very much.
Dr. Carlisle, yeah, I'll wait.
Hold on, you want to pass it?
Okay, go ahead.
You know what, I'll let you go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got a little preview of some of this stuff. My impression from the preview was that I didn't know that it was fully baked enough to be at the resolution stage. And the thing that I'm wrestling with is, I think it's fine to have some ideas that get kicked around by the building administrators and academic leaders and stuff like that. But I don't know, and maybe a lot more is happening, but I don't know that this is mature enough to be put on the agenda next month. I think that this has a big impact from the education perspective. And my impression is Dr. Carlisle should be sponsoring something this significant. And we have a lot of stakeholders. So if indeed we're heading down the road to have this come up as a policy from the board or from a building principal, as opposed to coming from the superintendent as his recommendation for the academic outcome, my impression would be that we would want to do this in stages. One is you tee it up. Another is you have some input, you get some buy-in. This is a change management initiative. I would call it a change management initiative. And I think it would be if we're heading down this road, it would be much more successful if you get people to buy in as opposed to next month, bam, it's done. Because you have to get people on board, and I think if we're going to go through this, we have a little bit of time to get people on board and ramp up and engage, as opposed to this is a top-down decision. I don't care what you have to say. I don't want to hear any suggestions on how we might do it better or any things we can consider. It's done next month. So I think it may merit discussion, but I haven't read the package, obviously, it just came out, but I don't have a copy. I'm raising a concern now that for this to be voted on next month, or in 3 weeks, that I would be more comfortable if there was a better roadmap than it's on the agenda next month. It's done.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm very happy that the administration is thinking out of the box. We talked about that early. Dave Matthews brought it up tonight, that we think out of the box. This is certainly an example of that. And I also think our administrators have really got caught up in the excitement of the idea, and I'm happy with that. So, with that being said, I do have some concern because I too kind of got caught up initially. But the more I reflect on this, I'm concerned about the budget, because I worked very closely this past week with our VA, and money is a concern. I like the number 50. That number may not even be accurate, but it's still something that we need to look at. The timeline, we have so many oars in the water right now. I'm a little concerned about jumping into an initiative of this size. And as I said earlier, I'm not flipping on this. I think we need more conversation. I think we don't want to rain on anyone's parade, but we need more conversation. This is a big initiative. And I know we have probably a split decision on this, but at this point, we need to step aside, not backwards, not turning forwards, but let's step aside on this issue and give it more thought.
Mr. Garrison. First of all, I want to thank the Academic Affairs Committee for the opportunity to sit in on the meeting. This year I have a junior and a sophomore at the academies. As of next year, I'll have a senior, a junior, and a freshman there at the same time. I say that just to say that there's no one on this board that's more vested, if you will, in what's going on there at that high school campus. And I, for one, as I told the Academic Affairs Committee, all for this change. The state sent out a DSEG order to us years ago and instructed us to improve upon the white moral campus, if you will, by emulating the like and positive practices of the academy. And that was the reason for it to come here in the first place. In my opinion, this is a change that should have been done years ago. And we are trying to push our children to be college ready. I'm sure at every single one of your college campuses, I know at my alma mater, it didn't matter if you were in the School of Engineering, if you were in the School of Business, if you were, whatever your major was, if you had a math class, you went into the math building. Now, depending upon where you were academically, or what program you were studying determined what classroom you went into. And I think that model could be emulated and would work very well here at our school. One thing that we have to keep in mind in everything that we do, the priority is that we are doing it for the kids. And I think that this would be a positive move socially. It would be a positive move academically. I also think that it would help us when it comes to professional development of our teachers, when you have the same subject teachers in the same cohort teaching together where they can bounce off of each other. I think it would be a positive move.
That's right. Absolutely.
So I think your points have a lot of merit. I think this discussion has a lot of stuff that's right for consideration. I think it would be highly irresponsible to embark on something as massive a strategic change as this in a series of 4 weeks. I can't even fathom. There's a massive set of considerations around budgeting, logistics, academic impact, brand. There are numerous things that need to be considered, and this is a really, really big deal. Why on earth would we want to embark on something like this without giving it due consideration? I think it would be tragic. I really, really think that. I mean, we talk a lot about how we make impulse decisions, and we don't think about all the implications and ramifications. And for something as critically important as this, to not give it a substantial amount of time is, I find unfathomable.
Good Lord.
We have Mrs. Craigberry, Mr. Pruitt, Mr. Harrison, and we have a document here that Unity doesn't have the privilege of this particular moment. And I think it might be beneficial to table this discussion at this moment, give our community an opportunity to see the document, and move forward from there. But that would require a motion from this board to table the discussion. Otherwise discussion will continue. Okay.
Like you, George, this is going to affect my household. My daughter is at the high school. She's in the academy. She is one of very few few kids that actually take classes on both sides. She has 2 classes in the on the DM side, and the change of time, when they're changing classes, the time slot, it's very hard for them to make it. I sat in on the academy academic meeting, and my question to the principal is basically for the students, have you thought about scheduling? Have you thought about the time? If you're going to integrate all the kids on the DM side right now gets out at 3, and the academy is at 4. Now, are they all going to get out at the same time? They didn't think about that. They didn't have an answer. So I think that this is something that we do have to discuss, although I am encouraged, I would like to encourage that our campus can become one and that the students are not so separated. I do support that. But I think that we really need to think about the children, think about the time they're going to have to take to go over to the other side of school. Think about about 1,000 kids interacting, how many, and passing each other to go through and switching classes. As you say in college, we don't have 5 minutes to go to the other building. You may have a class at 9 o'clock in the morning, then you have a class at 2 in the afternoon. You have a lot of time. But I'm just saying that it should be very well thought out. It should be discussed, and I do support, and I would like to move this discussion and table it.
Just, I know George was on the board when we looked at the academy prep program at the middle school and making it honors English, honors math, and honors science. Now, that didn't involve as much logistic implications, but we had a couple meetings to discuss that, as opposed to announcing it at 11 o'clock and say, okay, we're going to make this decision in the next week. I'm not saying it's not the right idea. All I am saying is, if we're going to head down this road, let's do it right, as opposed to slam it in and say, this is the answer. You have 3 people, you bring it up at midnight, and it's done. If we're going to head down the road, we need to involve the community, get people on board with the right decision, as opposed to saying, it has to be done at the next meeting. That was my key point.
Mr. Zach, Mr. Garrison.
I'm in complete agreement that, yeah, it has to be well thought out. But my concern is if we don't move on this, it's going to sit, and it's not going to happen. Right. That's one reason why I think we need to make a decision and go with it. If this is what the administrators or the people over at the school that run the school and run that high school, if this is what they're recommending, right, maybe we need to bring them before us. I have no problem discussing it, but we have to move on, because if we don't, it will just linger, just like everything else. We got to move on.
Good, thank you.
So, I would agree that discussion needs to take place and fully worked out. I think the good thing about bringing it up now is we're preparing for school year 14-15 in my opinion. I don't see any reason why things can't be done to have it prepared for 14-15. Furthermore, when it comes to switching classes, it's all about perspective, right? And I grew up in a school district 3 times as big as this one, and we switched buildings in between class. It was never a problem. And if you set expectations for students, they will adapt to those changes. That's just the way life is. Who moved the cheese? They're going to go where the cheese is. So, in addition, we brought up some other concerns. Quite honestly, I think those are things we need to take another hard look at, and I brought this up in academic affairs as well. Personally, I think we need to look at what's going on at 9th period. Why do we have a 9th period? What's really happening with 9th period? So, these discussions will get deeper, but as to just where we're housing our students and how that works, I think that this is a very good idea.
Other successful high schools have
academies, they have EP courses, they have regular courses, they have all kinds of things happening. And I think we are being ridiculously elitist when we think that we can't have one school. Both of my kids went to that high school when there were a lot more kids there than now. And they went from building to building to different classes. They weren't in all the same classes as their friends. Some were in AP, my kids were in AP classes, some of their friends were not. It's called high school. It's what you do, it's how you learn, it's like being a mini adult, learning how to survive out there. And I'm not saying we're ready to do this tomorrow, but my concern is we talk about it, and we talk about it, and we talk about it, and another year goes by, and we're still talking about it, and I'm just not willing to do that anymore.
Mr. Carter, Mr. Carter, you're going.
I'm always controversial, you know what, I really don't care. This board wanted to shove down our throats the moving of the elections. They put it in at the 11th hour. They wanted it in at the next meeting. So when we want to do something as a board, we can do it, and we can move fast. So board, get up off your and let's do this.
I think this is another case where we're all saying the same thing in a slightly different way. I don't think anybody disagrees that this needs to happen. The timing of it might be just right. We're talking about it. I mean, it's not going to happen any faster than it can happen. So why don't we just continue the conversation in the right direction and make it happen? I mean, I think we all want to see this for our kids. We're all saying the same thing, just a little bit different. It doesn't need to be an argument.
Thanks. Funny that we had our board meeting here with the little ballerinas who came up. My throat got kind of thick. I tell y'all, seeing these young ladies, because time goes by so fast, right? It seemed like just yesterday, my little girl's up there on that stage at this age. But in a year and a half, my baby girl's going to be out on her own. And if I didn't do a good job at home, if a good job wasn't done within our school district, then we have a major problem, right? So that being said, I think that the bigger problem is probably how we're selling the academies to begin with. There should never be any confusion about whether it's one or two schools, whether it's a program or not. It has to do with the sell at point A. So we are making no excuses or apologies for who we are here in Inglewood. And if you want to come to us, we'd love to have you as an out-of-district student. But if there's a problem beyond that, then perhaps that's a student that we're not interested in having.
Yeah, I think in terms of timing, what I'm hearing is a binary presentation. Either do it by next board meeting or it's never going to happen. How's this for an alternate scenario? Are we making a board goal or a district goal to consider this and come to resolution by the end of next year? It's not either now or never. When you're planning something really important, you do it purposefully, you put a lot of thought into it, you look at the pros and cons, you talk to stakeholders, you engage with the community, you talk to teachers, you talk to students, you talk to families. I just don't understand why we wouldn't give ourselves the benefit of the doubt. Something as important as this is not
our kids need this now! Your kids don't go to school here. Our kids are struggling. They are drowning, and you are helping to pour the water down their throats.
This is bad. Sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Garrison.
Yeah, so it's late and emotions can get kind of high, right? And so here's my thought. We're not, I say we, I am certainly not interested in a programmatic change. We're still looking to have an academy model, higher rigor courses, but we're talking about a physical change in buildings so that it just makes sense. Then no one can say there's a separation. And you know what? The funny thing is, the problem is not with the students. And the kids, they get along with they're dating each other. You know, they're playing on the same teams. you got academy students going to the other campus or the other side to eat lunch and vice versa because they want to interact with each other. We need to help with what our students are already pushing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our board members, I'm deeply concerned because of a couple of things. First, let me say that when this was first brought to my attention, I was thinking, what a great idea. We're talking about STEM. In most of our conversations, we haven't used the word STEM. So we're really looking at doing something and having a discussion about what can we do to improve academic achievement. I was deeply concerned because it had not gone through our superintendent. And we're responsible for working with and through our superintendent. We've reached into our staff and we've utilized them to bring something forward. We have a superintendent that has sat here and said to us, he's got some concerns. And he would like to go back and dig in on this a little bit more. I couldn't agree more that there's a high sense of urgency. And we really need to make changes fast, very fast. But I think we are sidestepping the person that is supposed to be our district leader and working with him and through him and his staff. We have two people that developed this, and Pete Elbert and Joe Arnethal. I don't know if they've discussed this with any of our CNI folks, with our VA. Where has all of that taken place? How has that been made? There's a whole host of things. I would hope that we would ramp up quickly and evaluate this very quickly. But in addition, moreover, I'd like to hear what are the objectives around improving academic achievement. What will the outcomes be, measurable? We do a lot about putting programs in place without any measures of effectiveness, and there's nothing stated here regarding measures of effectiveness. Moreover,
Like the one you
I
have.
also don't see anything related to scaffolding to the academies. We've been hearing that our kids are coming from the middle school ill prepared for the academies. And so what are we doing there to address that as well? Let's do something that's comprehensive. We're still going to have the same problem if our kids are not prepared to enter into the academies and are underperforming. So I sincerely hope, Dave Matthews has said this, you hear this coming out from the audience, where's Academy Prep? We have the IB program and the dual language program. Once you get past that, the bottom falls out, and then we're asking our kids to rise to a new occasion. What are we doing? So I sincerely hope that this body will work with the superintendent and lay out all of the initiatives and the objectives and ask that the administrative team work collaboratively with him and with us to develop a holistic approach and not a piecemeal approach. With that said, I'll entertain a motion to